Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about a momentous decision that is going to be done by Joe Biden coming up within the next 8 or 9 days around student loans. And by the way, before I get into this, if you'd like the audio version of this content, please check out the link in the description, my new startup that has a lot of audio content. You can download it, check it out, and listen to the audio version of this content only. All right, student loans. Student loans are coming up. Joe Biden has extended the student loan pause 4 times in the past basically year and a half. And now August 31st is when the deadline ends. What does this mean on August 31st? Well, on August 31st, when the deadline for student loan payments ends, that means the interest rate freezes that we've had on student loans where people have not had to pay back a monthly payment or pay interest rates for the past 2 years, basically since March 2020, is going to end, which means student loan payments will begin and interest rates will begin as well, which means you're going to be paying interest on the outstanding loans that you have. Now, Biden has noted, and the reason why it's been extended many times is because he believes that borrowers aren't in the position to actually pay student loans, which means if they're not in the position to pay student loans, he doesn't want to randomly put them on them because if they're not going to pay them anyway, then that's just going to lead to more problems in the economy. The question here is Biden going to do what he campaign promised, which is get rid of $10,000 for every single person who has student loans? They added an amendment to this over the past couple of weeks that if you make less than $125,000, the White House is seriously considering getting rid of $10,000 of your student debt. We're going to watch a quick video talking about this and then present a little bit more of my analysis on what exactly is going on here.
Just days now away from the Education Department ending its more than 2-year pause on federal student loan repayments. Many borrowers are hoping the Biden administration will extend that August 31st deadline and offer more debt forgiveness. But a new CNBC poll finds many Americans believe that could have unintended consequences. Our senior personal finance correspondent, Sharon Epperson, has more. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Joe. President Biden does have a tough decision to make on student loan forgiveness. You know, after battling higher prices already, a majority of Americans, 59%, are concerned loan forgiveness will make inflation worse. That's according to a new survey by CNBC and Momentive. That concern, though, may be overdone. Over half of adults polled, 53%, say if forgiveness put extra money in their monthly budget, they would pay off other loans. And 45% said they would save that money for retirement. But nearly 1/3 of all adults, 30%, say there should be no student loan forgiveness for anyone. If you dig deeper, there are some sharp divides among those who hold this view. While 39% of men say no loan should be forgiven, just 22% of women say that. Only 19% of young adults between 18 and 34 years old say no loan should be forgiven versus 39% of those over 65. Overall, 34% of adults say only those in need should have loans forgiven, and 32% want loan forgiveness for all who have student debt. The Biden administration has approved nearly $32 billion in student loan relief so far, and the Department of Education says it is working to improve existing programs to make it easier for borrowers who qualify to get their debt discharged. And Joe, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona yesterday on NBC talked about the fact that we will hear something about loan forgiveness expected this week. Back to you.
I know we did CNBC did a student loan survey back in January. How much did respondents, did their views change since then?
Well, we saw some interesting data in terms of their current financial situation. When people were polled back in January, over 5,000 people, about 29% of them said that their financial situation was worse than it was 2 years ago. When the poll was just done in early August, that number jumped to 39% of Americans saying that their financial situation is worse than it was 2 years ago. So we're seeing a significant increase in people really feeling some financial pain.
Okay. All right.
All right. So that's important to understand here because it leads us into this argument around what's happening in student loans. Basically, what's going on here is the Biden administration is weighing the fact that from all the polling, it says most people are in favor of student loans. Yes, some people don't want it to be canceled because they think it could lead to inflation, but a lot of people also do want it to at least go down a little bit. And what he's dealing with here is a lot of people are also or have at least surveyed, are in a worse financial position than they were 2 years ago, which means if you're in a worse financial position than you were when you were paying student loans, to cough up another $200, $300, $400 a month just to pay your student loans, which let's say at $300, it's another $3,600 a year. It's a lot of money. Now, the argument that is being made here, and what Biden is basically weighing, is around should they give up to 50,000 or 10,000 borrower. Now, some of the more extreme candidates in the Democratic Party are saying we should cancel up to $50,000 in student loan per borrower. I don't think that's going to happen. 10,000 if you're making less than 125,000 a year, that could be possible, and that is something that Biden campaigned on. The question is that going to happen? Borrowers hold $1.6 trillion in outstanding federal student loan debt. About 54% of borrowers with outstanding student loan debt owed less than $20K, and about 45% of the outstanding debt was held by 10% of the borrowers owing 80% or $80,000 or more. Now, the interesting thing here is how Biden is ultimately going to communicate this message based on whatever he does. There's two scenarios that happens. Either he says we're going to get rid of 10,000 per borrower, which means he has to tell people that 50,000 is just too extreme and he can't do that, and there has to be like some personal responsibility there. Or he has to also say that 10,000 is enough if you're making less than 125,000 to give you a good amount of relief so that you can start paying your student loans back on time. That's one option. The second option is to continuously delay this problem, given the infrastructure in the United States probably is not built to remind that many people in the next 9 days that they have to start paying their student loans. I mean, I barely even got any email reminders about my student loans over the past couple of weeks, which means he would push it back until 2023, January, and he says, all right, this is the last time, 4 last months, get your stuff together. January, you have to start paying it back. I'm serious. He acted like he was serious the past 2 times, but it led to another pause. It seems like that might happen again for January. The other option is he does nothing, which I don't think is going to happen given the tone of the administration, given what they've been saying. And he basically says, all right, August 31st, it's time to start paying back your student loans. I have $10,250 of student loans. So if he were to get rid of $10,000 for everybody, I would literally have $250 left, and I would just like pay those $250. My thoughts and my opinion on this, there's a couple things. Number one, I do think at some level, if you get rid of $10,000 per borrower, they have that money that they can use in other places. So for example, I can pay off other bills. I can invest in different things. I can put more money into the stock market because I don't have to put $200 into the student loans, which means that other companies get my liquidity, things of that nature. So there's obvious trade-offs with that extra money going to the government for student loans, which you could argue like really is not that, the government's not going to do that much with it versus putting it up into other things and like fueling more of the economy. The second half to that, though, is about inflation. Inflation has started to peak from 9.1% down to 8.5%. That's still pretty bad. But if inflation continues to go down, you could make an argument that if the government, I think if they did 10,000 per borrower, it's like 400 something billion or something like that. That wouldn't put a horrible dent in inflation. Now, there could be an argument that does increase inflation, that we cannot afford to be able to do that it's also not fair from an ethical perspective to all the people who did have to pay their student loans in 2019. And just obviously when the pandemic happens, it's like now they don't have to pay it for external circumstances. And that could be the argument for why we don't do the $10,000 student loan cancellation. I think that's going to be the big headline if $10,000 does get canceled. If it doesn't get canceled, I do think there is going to be extension. There is very little doubt in my mind that Biden on August 31st or a couple days before that when he announces this is like, yeah, no problem. You guys have to start paying it back. No issue. Especially going into the midterms, because if you go into the midterms, you probably don't want to piss off a lot of your base, and a lot of your base would be pissed off given you campaigned on that you would give them $10,000, at least $10,000 off. But now it's a question of if inflation is that bad, is it actually worth being able to do that? Because if inflation is that bad, then it just might not be politically feasible for Biden to be able to cancel that much given what's going on with inflation. And inflation hurts all Americans even more than obviously student loans. Even though student loans would help a lot of Americans if he got rid of them or if he substantially reduced them. So we're going to see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you think it's ethical to decrease student loans or to cancel some parts of student loans, or do you just think economically it's good because it's going to help other parts of the market and the economy? Or do you think there is going to be likely nothing that happens and people are going to have to start paying back their student loans? Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I'll see you in the next one.